We're just waiting on the lieutenant governor.
I unfortunately just got a text that I don't think the lieutenant governor is going to be able to make it. She's in a meeting
Oh no.
with the governor at the moment. So we are going to be joined by Hannah Carlock, who's the director of public policy at the Arc of Indiana, who will be able to speak to a lot of the same points as the lieutenant governor. We like her a lot, so she's a great substitute.
I think you have to make her a co-host.
I just did. She might be waiting a second to put on her camera. And
Hi.
hello, Hannah.
So I guess I'm the pinch hitter. I'm not as great as the LG, but she does send her condolences. She got pulled into a meeting with the governor, so he kind of trumps us when it comes to importance, I guess. So
That is her boss.
it is her boss. So she is meeting with the boss man himself. But the next one of these meetings, she does want to be a part of that. So at a future date, we will be able to get her on, which I think will be better for her schedule since we are in the last week, actually a week from today, we will be ending the legislative session, and the lieutenant governor is in charge of the Indiana State Senate. So she is a very busy woman this time of year. On top of being a lieutenant governor, she also has to make sure to keep all the senators in line. So right now I am multitasking, watching the House and legislative session. The Senate is already adjourned for the day, but next week we are down to the wire of getting things done with the legislative process. So right now they are doing conference committees. So that means that bills that the House and Senate did not agree upon, they're in conference committees working out their differences, and then they have to vote on them one more time before they are sent along to the governor. So one of the key parts that lieutenant governor plays once a bill has passed both the House and the Senate, the Speaker of the House and then the Senate pro tem, as well as the lieutenant governor, they all have to sign the bill before it can be sent to the governor. So the lieutenant governor sees all the bills that are passed, and she actually has to help sign bills into law, which is an awesome thing because she's an awesome woman and great on our issues. The budget bill, so we have been keeping track of the budget bill throughout the entire legislative process. So every 2 years, the state has to look at the budget and fund the state for another 2 years. So this year's a budget session. And so we look at a lot of different things, transportation's funded in the budget, public safety, Medicaid, education. So there are a lot of big things that are funded in the state budget. So we keep a close eye on that. And so the House put in the $13 an hour average for direct support professional wages. So right now the state average is around $11.36. And this will help get an increase to direct support professionals because they really do deserve a wage increase. So the House put that $13 an hour average into the budget, the House version of the budget, and the Senate kept that in there. And so tomorrow is the April revenue forecast that will tell legislators if we have more money expected to come into the state. So that means that they have more money that they can play with and put in the budget. And if it is a positive increase, then that means that we could potentially get in the second year of the 2-year budget a wage increase for DSPs of an average of $15 an hour. So fingers crossed, say your prayers tonight that the April revenue forecast tomorrow is positive so that we can hopefully get a much needed bump to DSP wages in the state. So that is the biggest news this upcoming week, and we'll know more tomorrow afternoon about that. But this doesn't mean that our work is done. We still have until next Friday, so not next Friday, next Wednesday. So the budget bill is always the last bill that the Senate and the House vote on. So we have an entire week that we can still reach out to legislators to let them know that this is a very important just a very important reason and cause that we really need to put more money behind. So reach out to your state representatives and senators. I know some of you guys have, and that has been a huge help to us, but definitely continue that outreach to your state legislators, as Kim and I can be over at the State House, you know, talking all the time. I know that FSSA is over there talking about what they need in their budget, and they see us every day. But they need to hear from people back in their district, like you guys, about how this impacts people living in their hometowns. And so that's why we really need you guys to reach out to them. That's why we've actually had so much success this year, because all the Valentines that you guys helped with, that was all focused around DSPs. And then there's been a lot more outreach this year about direct support professionals. So the success of us getting this wage increase is because of you guys. So continue to reach out to your legislators, and you can find out who your legislators are by going to www.iga.in.gov. And up at the top of the website, click on the information tab, which is on the top left-hand corner, and then just scroll down to find your legislator. And you're gonna put in your address, and your state and state representative and state senator will come up, and that is the number that you should call. If you want to email them, you can also email them if you don't like talking over the phone. So either way, we would really like your support over this last week in the legislative session to get, you know, DSP wage increase across the finish line. So thanks for all of your help, but we need to finish strong this legislative session so that we can actually see a wage increase for our direct support professionals. And I'm willing to take any questions.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, use the chat or raise your hand.
Yes. If you raise your hand, I will have the ability to promote you to a panelist. So you'll be able to pop up on everyone's screen and ask Hannah your question in person. Or like Sean said, you can use the question and answer box. If you just move your mouse over your screen, there's a little toolbar that comes up at the bottom, and there's two quotation bubbles, kind of like the SAI logo, that says Q&A. You can use that as well. Anyone has any questions? Oh, we have one here. One moment. Should be popping up in a second. Okay, and I'll to make you the co-host to allow you to unmute yourself. And Deb, are you able to unmute yourself or show your screen here?
Can you hear me now?
I can, yes.
I could hear you. I thought I
Thank you.
started the video.
So thank you at the beginning when we were sorting out some of our technical issues with the audio. Thank you for letting me know that you could hear me. I wasn't
She's back.
sure.
She's back. You're back on mute.
Okay, sorry, can you hear me now? I'm old, so I don't really have a question. I just wanted to thank Hannah for all the work she's done for ARC this year and everybody with disabilities. I've watched, I'm crazy, I know, but I've watched the legislative session every day since you've started. I was in Florida for 3 months, and I watched it from down there, and have communicated with my senators and senators outside my area too, but it has made a difference. My senator voted against her party to vote for an amendment. It didn't pass, but to raise the DSP wages to $15 an hour. So we have a lot of support out there. So I just wanted to thank Hannah. So
Well, thank you. You've been a huge help, and thanks for watching. I know it's not very invigorating watching session, but
No, I really enjoy it, which I don't know what that says for me, but you know,
thank you so much.
yeah.
We're gonna, oh, 1 second.
Aaron had a question on here.
Just 1 second. I'm new to the whole this particular tech format, so.
So it looks like Aaron is asking, what can self-advocates do to keep advocating for our issues between the legislative sessions? That is a fantastic question. So I feel like we should not just be in contact with our legislators, not only during session, but throughout the year. So how legislators get ideas for bills so that they can work that through legislative process and become law is through us remaining in contact with them. So continue to remain in contact with them, whether that be, you know, calling them or emailing them. And when they're not in session, and if you feel comfortable going out of your house, you can meet with them for, you know, a cup of coffee in their district. They love doing that, and just sharing with them the things that are working, building that relationship with them so that they know who you are and they can go to you if they have any questions. So share with them what's working so that they don't mess anything up, because they are great at doing that as well. So share with them what's working, and share with them what's not working for you, whether it be, you know, services, living in the community, just anything in general, because that's how they get ideas for bills. So just throughout, you know, the summer and in the fall, don't contact them, you know, every day or every week, but, you know, once a month, just stay in touch with them and just send like a message like, thanks for what you did this legislative session. I need your help with this, or this isn't working for me, or I really like how the medicated waiver allows me to do this. Just anything like that, or transportation is really lacking in my community. Just anything like that, just reach out to them, you know, once a month and remain in contact. But very good question. Thank you, Aaron.
We actually have another one about when is the legislative session, and when and how can you view that?
Yeah, so the legislative session runs from the first week of January, and this year, since it's a budget session, it's a long session. So usually goes to April 29th, but they're ending a week early. So April 21st is the last day, so you still have a week to watch session. And so you can go to the website again where you find your legislators. That's www.iga.in.gov, and I can put it in the chat for you guys. And on the right hand side of your screen of the website, we'll have, you know, different committees listed, and then House session and Senate session, and it has a little camera next to it, and you just click on the camera and up pops the legislative session, up pops committees, and you can, there's actually a closed captioning option underneath the screen, so you can also read what they're saying as well. So there is that option, but I will put the website in the chat box so you guys can all go there to watch session.
Great.
Danielle had one too.
Yes, Danielle put in the chat, how do we know that we're getting through to people? What are some indicators that what we're doing is working?
Yeah, so I mean, just the successes of what's going on through the legislative process shows that it's working. Just as Deb said, one of her senators that she had reached out to voted against her own party for something that we wanted. That is huge. That rarely happens. That's just one way of knowing that they're listening. Sometimes, you know, they'll respond to you guys with either a handwritten note in the mail, or, you know, to emails, or they even call you. So there are different ways. I mean, sometimes you don't get a response, but that doesn't mean that they didn't hear from you guys, because they do have, you know, hundreds of people contacting them every day. So yeah, I mean, you're not going to get a response every time, but you do get sometimes that little affirmation that, hey, they are listening to me.
All right, any additional questions, either in the chat box or by raising your hand? Otherwise, we will let Hannah go. I can see her eyes like looking at the Senate feed, watching the keeping important tabs on the legislative session. So if there are no other questions, we will let you get back to that. Thank you so much for helping us out today and filling in. We really appreciate your time.
Yes, Kim, I gave you 15 extra minutes, so.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks, Hannah.
And we'll work with Hannah to get the Lieutenant Governor to come on for one of these informational forums. All right, now we're going to send it to Kim Opsahl, the interim, or however you say it, DDRS Director.
Very good. Well, thank you, Sean, and thanks to all of you for inviting me today for your first informational forum. I'm really excited to be here. So as Sean said, I'm the incoming DDRS Director, so I am not in that role yet. Kylie is with us still. She'll be with us. Right now we don't have a definitive date for her transition, so that'll be likely sometimes towards the end of spring, early summer. Once we have a definitive date for her transition, we'll send out an announcement through our DDRS listserv so that everyone's aware of that change. But I'm super excited to have the opportunity to move into the role of DDRS Director. I thought today, after talking with Shannon and with Sean, I'd kind of share a little bit with you all about my background and how I came to DDRS. And then talk a little bit about what I expect or what I'm hoping to accomplish as I move into the role of director, and then a little bit about some of the bigger issues that we are talking about these days within the 4 bureaus that are within the division. So just a little bit of background for you all about how I wound up here. So I actually started working in this field back when I was in college, which I feel like was just a few years ago, but sadly was maybe a few more years than that. At the time, I was a junior down at Indiana University in Bloomington. And of all things, I wanted to have my car on campus. And my dad said that the only way that was going to happen is if I had a job. And so I had already waited tables. I didn't want to do that. And I was studying psychology. And so I saw an ad in the newspaper for working in a group home. And I thought that that might be something close to psychology. And so applied, and I showed up on the front doorstep of a home down in Bedford, Indiana, where I met 8 pretty amazing gentlemen who changed the whole kind of trajectory of my life. So I worked in that group home. I did what they call the long weekend shift. So my junior year of college, I worked 8 a.m. to midnight on Saturdays and 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Sundays, and spent a lot of quality time with those guys. And like I said, I think what I learned from that experience is that they taught me far more than I probably taught them. And like I said, they really changed kind of the direction that my life and my career went. And so with the exception of a couple years right after I graduated, where I thought it would be fun to be an insurance adjuster, which by the way, it was not fun. I have worked in this field. So I've done a couple different things. I was a case manager, but I was a case manager a long time ago. So when things were more handwritten and not done on the computer, which makes me sound really old, but was a case manager for a couple of years. That's probably, when I look back on my time in this field, probably the time I enjoyed the most. And as a result, I have a real passion for case management and for person-centered planning and kind of all that goes with that. So not surprising, those will probably be some of the areas that I'll focus in on as a director. But then I also worked for residential providers in a couple different capacities. And then in 2013, I left working in direct service, and I'm sorry, not 2013, 2003. Even older. I left working in direct service and went to work for NARF, which I think many of you are familiar with. NARF is the trade association that represents providers who serve individuals with disabilities, and they're a partner with the ARC on many initiatives. And so I worked at NR for about 13 years. When I left there, I was the president and CEO of the organization, really enjoyed my time there, but had some opportunities to do some other things. One of those opportunities was to work with an organization called ANCOR, which is very similar to NRF, but they, instead of advocating for issues on a state level, they do that on a national level. And so that was some really great experience to see what was happening across the country when it came to issues impacting services for folks with disabilities. While I was at ANCOR, I maintained a relationship and connection with Kylie and the DDRS team, and had the opportunity to join that team just a little over 2 years ago now. So I started with the division in December of 2019. No, 2018. I need a calendar, right? In 2018. So I had a full year there before the pandemic hit, which was lovely. But I worked in the role of associate director. What that really means is I really just do things that our bureau directors need help with, help them with maybe special projects that they have, help them with other sorts of activities that are happening within their bureaus. Over the past year, that's been a lot of work with COVID-related things, and so have primarily been helping them with efforts around grant programs for our provider network, and really over the past several months have been heading up all of our work around helping people to get access to vaccine. So hopefully everyone on the call has had an opportunity to get their vaccine. If they haven't, please go to ourshot.in.gov and sign up. And if you have questions about that, I'd be happy to answer some of those today. And if I don't have the answer, I will work with Sean and Shannon to make sure that we get you those answers. So that's a little bit about me. And so in terms of kind of what I am looking at as I move into the director role is probably a lot of the same. You know, I've had the opportunity and really the pleasure to work with the DDRS team, like I said, for a couple years now. And part of the reason why I came to that team is because I really respect Kylie and I respect all of our bureau directors and the work that they've been doing. And so largely I don't anticipate, you know, sometimes when the director changes, all of a sudden things we've been working on, we stop and we change to new things, and there's a lot of disruption. And I'm very hopeful that we won't have a lot of that as we make this transition. I have, like I said, tremendous respect for our leadership team, and I think we're doing a lot of great things, and really see my role as kind of helping folks to do those great things. I think if anything else, and would love to hear from you all today in regards to this, one of my strong commitments that I have brought to my work to date and will continue to bring to my work moving forward is really a commitment for thinking about how do we make the system really help people direct their own lives. That's a really important part of why we are even doing all of this, right? And so sometimes that gets in the way, like all of the interesting rules that we might have to follow from a federal level, or some of the things we've put in place as a state, or the pressures of the day kind of take us away from really thinking about how we support people to live their own life. And so I am, like I said, very committed and very passionate about thinking about how do we make decisions about how we design services, how we deliver services in a way that really promotes people leading their own lives. And so would love to hear from all of you about things that help you to lead your own life, or maybe things that have kept you from leading your own life. And some of those I might be able to help with, and some of those I might not, but I think that's important information for us to be thinking about as we kind of move forward. So some of the ways that we have currently kind of involved self-advocates in our work are through our Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services Advisory Council. So some of you may already be aware that Sean has been a longstanding member of that council. We really have appreciated his participation and his voice on issues. I think Sean has done a tremendous job of helping us all remain accountable to really what's the most important task, which is what is the experience of our self-advocates at the end of the day. And is what we are doing working for folks or not working for folks? And how do we make adjustments when it's not working for people? I'm really excited to share with you all that Megan Berger is going to also be joining the DDRS Advisory Council. So April will be her first meeting on the council. So we're very excited to expand the voice of self-advocates on the council. And that will probably be something we may look at if there are some more opportunities to involve self-advocates there. In addition to that, we have partnered with Self-Advocates of Indiana and the ARC of Indiana to help us in two really important projects. One is our Living Well grant. And so that's a grant that we have through the federal government that's helping us think about how do we, if we really want to support people in living their own life and in living and being a part of their community, that means we have to think maybe differently about the way we monitor services and make sure that people are healthy and safe and that they're receiving the support that they need. And so the Living Well grant brings us kind of technical assistance resources as well as some financial resources that help us to look at that and think about what that looks like in Indiana. And so Self-Advocates of Indiana is particularly is working with us as a partner in the grant to help us to develop tools and resources and information for self-advocates and families that really help them think about how do I build a vision for my good life. And then once I have that vision, what are the steps that I need to take that will help me get to that vision? What are some of the services that I might need from the waiver or from other programs? What are some of the supports that might be available to me in my community that would help me move in that direction? And really just kind of helping folks to understand sometimes navigating services and supports is hard work. It's kind of confusing. And sometimes it's even confusing for those of us who should probably know it, right? And so part of what we partnered with Self-Advocates of Indiana to do to help us with is helping to give people information about how to navigate the system. Important things in my mind, like how do you lead your own team meeting? We need self-advocates to lead their own team meetings. That's what the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services require. They're the federal governmental agency that oversees our services. That's what they want to see happen. And that's frankly what we at DDRS want to see happen, is that, again, that people have control over their own life, and that starts with leading your own team meeting. And so, but that's, no one really teaches you how to do that, right? And so how do we work with self-advocates to develop some training, to develop some resources that help you all do that? So that's kind of one example of the way that we're working together. So I'm very excited about that work. In addition to that, a newer project, it's kind of a project we've done off and on over the years, but you're going to hear us talk more and more about a program called Money Follows the Person, or MFP. And what that program is, that's a federal grant program that helps support us to move people out of institutional settings and into the community. And again, I'm really excited. The ARC of Indiana helped us with some preliminary kind of research and planning to help us think about how we could do this in a really effective way and really make some progress in helping people to move into the community. And so now we're going to be starting to implement some of those strategies. And one of those is really thinking about how do we do peer-to-peer supports so that if I'm a person with a disability living in a nursing facility who is interested in moving out, how can I talk with a peer who lives in the community and learn more about what does that all involve, and someone who can kind of help me think through that process. And so we'll be partnering with the ARC of Indiana and Self-Advocates of Indiana to do that. So another great place where we're looking to partner with self-advocates. But I think with those are great kind of steps. I think we still have lots more opportunity. And so again, I think this is, and I know we'll have plenty of time for questions today. So today, if you've got some ideas, and even in the future, if you have some ideas of where you think we could better involve self-advocates in our work, we would definitely love to hear all about that. Do we want, I haven't been monitoring the chat.
I have. So just a reminder to folks that if you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand. You may have to go, depending on which software you're using, you may have to go to participants to be able to get the raise your hand option. You can also type something into the chat, or if you scroll over your screen and over the panelists, you should get a little toolbox at the bottom that has a Q&A box. If you click on that box, you'll be able to type in a question and we'll be able to see and answer that question.
Okay.
So we do have a question from Danielle in the chat. What do I do if I feel like people are not listening to what I want for my life?
Danielle, that is a fabulous question. I appreciate your asking that. I'm sorry that may be what you're experiencing. So I'd say there's probably a couple different things that you can do if you feel like that's the case. So I'm going to assume from the question that you're talking maybe about the people who are being paid to be in your life. Folks, maybe it's your provider agency, perhaps it's your case manager. What I would first encourage you to do is have a conversation with them. You know, maybe that's outside of the context of a team meeting, but to say, to just kind of share that with them. I don't feel like you're listening to me, and here are some of the reasons why, and what can we do to fix that? And if they aren't open to that conversation, or maybe don't respond in the way that you would hope, then I would also encourage you to kind of move up the ladder, right? So if it's your case manager, or maybe it's the program coordinator with your provider agency, going to kind of that next level, maybe to their supervisor, or to see if maybe they have even someone in the organization who kind of helps when someone is dissatisfied with their services. And to have a conversation with them. They may be able to help you maybe have another conversation with that person to help them to better understand how to support you. Maybe they can help you with changing who that person is. Now, if it's a provider, then your case manager, may be time for a conversation with your case manager as well, to say, hey, I don't feel like this provider is listening to me. What can we do to either resolve that, or maybe it's time to change who is providing that particular service to me. So, so those would be some initial, if you feel like you've gone through that, so you've tried to talk with the person who's not listening, you've maybe tried to either talk with your case manager about it or their supervisor about it, still don't feel like you're making progress, you're always welcome to also reach out to us. And so you can do that kind of informally by reaching out to your BDDS service coordinator in your local area and talking with them. You could do it more formally. You know, I mean, if it's something that you feel very strongly about, you're always welcome to also file a complaint if you would like, if you feel like it's kind of serious enough that it kind of rises to that level. While we're on, I will try and find the link to that and drop it in the chat if folks are interested. But I think what we have found oftentimes, Danielle, and for others on the call, is that a lot of times these issues just boil down to kind of communication gaps, right? That we're just not talking with one another, and we're not, and that's not, I'm not being critical that folks aren't doing something right, but I think a lot of times when maybe there's some conflict at a team level, it's usually kind of boils down to some communication, and sometimes just having those direct conversations with folks and sharing your concerns helps us kind of work through that, and we're able to kind of resolve issues, you know, at that kind of first level. I think we see that more often than not. Obviously, there are times when that's not true, and that's why we have kind of those other ways of escalating concerns. But that would be my recommendation. But it's a great question, and one we've been talking a lot about. Yeah, and so Danielle, I see that you said the company wasn't listening and you had to switch companies, and unfortunately sometimes that's true. But that's why we have choice, right? Is so that you're not kind of stuck in that position, but you have the opportunity to make a change. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
Kind of working off of Danielle's question, what can SAI as an organization and individual self-advocates do to help people know about their choices and know that they have the right to live a self-determined life and have different options during their planning meetings to make those decisions for themselves.
I think really big one is just talking about that. So I know you guys, you've been helping us kind of formally with some trainings, but even at your meetings, or, maybe it's sharing with folks kind of helpful hints through maybe social media, or, in fun paper version, but, here are like important things to know about your team meeting, using that as an example. I think a lot of times, I think we're missing some opportunities at team meetings to really listen to people and to, again, make sure that the person is leading that meeting to whatever that means for them, right? And so those are important. I think helping self-advocates to know that they should be asking their case manager, how can I lead my team meeting? How can you support me in leading my team meeting? All of those sorts of things. So I think it's just really helping raise folks' awareness. And then I would say on the kind of the flip side is that as you talk with folks about these important issues, and maybe you see that there are some themes, like folks are really running into kind of this challenge or this obstacle, I think certainly sharing those with us, and then maybe we can do some collaboration. Maybe it's a training, or maybe it's us putting out some clarification to the field, saying, hey, folks are running into this issue, and let's be clear what our rules are around that, and kind of what are our expectations, so that we're really supporting folks and kind of leading their life.
Just one more reminder that folks can raise their hand or put their questions in the Q&A box. I was wondering, actually, Kim, if you have any updates on the waiver redesign.
So
process. I know that was started in 2020, but kind of hit the 2020 roadblock.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. So yeah, I'll chat about those, and then I'll also maybe touch on a couple other kind of priority areas that we're working on across the division. So waiver redesign, if you guys remember, it feels like 10 years ago, but it was really just a little over a year ago. We published a concept paper that laid out kind of some ideas about the ways that we might go about changing and redesigning the waiver program. One, I need to thank all of you. We got that was a great place where we partnered again with the ARC and Self Advocates of Indiana in hosting self-advocate and family forums to gather feedback. And we got a lot of feedback. We were so pleased by the amount of feedback that we received from folks. Because it's really important. While we may be tasked with the responsibility of doing this work, it's not our work, it's your work, right? It's your ideas that we're trying to figure out, how do we create a system that helps us move in that direction. So we appreciate all of that feedback. And so, we were pretty excited, and then of course COVID hit, and so we had to pause that project. We didn't, obviously, with kind of the intensity of the public health pandemic, that was really kind of where we needed to focus our energy and our efforts. We unpaused the project briefly over the summer when we didn't realize we were in the good times of the pandemic. But when things were a little less intense, we unpaused the project to kind of finish out all of the opportunities for stakeholder feedback. And then since that time, we've been really working kind of internally. We've continued to work with HSRI, which is the contractor that we are working with on waiver redesign. They've really spent the bulk of their time sifting through all of that stakeholder feedback to kind of identify what are the themes, what are the kind of different ideas that folks have, and how do we start really kind of pulling those together. We've also had some conversations with families, with self-advocates, with our provider network, with our case managers to say, we are in a very different place as a system today than we were in December of 2019, as we were poised to kind of release that concept paper. The system has been put under a considerable amount of stress with the public health emergency. Providers are, having some real challenges with staffing and things of that nature, which staffing was a challenge before the pandemic, and it has become, even more so as we continue through the pandemic, and will probably remain that way. And frankly, you know, from a state perspective, we also, you know, resources look differently now because of kind of how we've had to respond to the public health emergency. And so really looking at maybe, you know, what the ideas we put out in that concept paper, we may not fully, you know, some of those we may not fully be able to realize. However, with all of the feedback that we heard from folks, I think one of our lessons learned is that there were kind of 3 themes that kept coming up in the feedback that at the end of the day are pretty foundational themes that we have to kind of wrestle with as a system. And actually, I'm a little thankful. I mean, I'm not thankful for the public health emergency, but I am thankful for maybe the pause and for the opportunity to kind of see that, because if we don't address these kind of these 3 kind of foundational issues, no change that we made would really have the impact or effect that we would want, because we still have these issues. And so what those issues are, the first one is really thinking about how do we have a sense of, and more than a sense, how do we create shared outcomes among team members? And how do we really improve team dynamics? So I think what we heard time and time again from folks is that my team really isn't helping me. They aren't listening to me. They come in and they give a report on their area and then they leave. And we're not really talking as a team about what's important to me. And part of that is because all of the different folks on that team have different kind of outcomes, different things that they're trying to accomplish. And so how do we maybe align those outcomes so that everybody's rowing in the same direction? And then how do we think about how do we really promote a team working as a team and really talking with one another and talking with the person that they're supporting and kind of having those important conversations when we do have team meetings and things of that nature. And so I think that was said in various ways depending on the stakeholder, but those were very common sorts of themes that came out regardless of who the stakeholder was. So from our families, from self-advocates, from providers, from case managers, this kind of general dissatisfaction that we have an opportunity to do better. And to really make the team process dynamic in the way that it's intended to be. So that's kind of one theme. The second theme is really a desire to have more enhanced supports around system navigation, which necessarily kind of pulls case management into the process. I think what we heard from folks is that they are really looking to their case manager and to others to help them figure out how to navigate through the system to do the things that they want to do in their life. And that's not currently very easy to do. And that sometimes the folks who are there to support them in that don't always have all of the information available to them about what are my different options, what are the different things that I could be doing. And so that's kind of that second tier is really how do we do a better job with supporting people in navigating the system, not for the sake of navigating it, but for the sake of helping them get to where they want to go in their life, and helping them think about how the waiver helps with that. But how do other things in my community or other programs I might be eligible for, how do I bring that all together in a way that helps support me towards my goals? And then the third is really looking at, so maybe not fundamentally changing all of the services that we offer, but really looking at, are there ways that we can enhance maybe some of our existing services, or maybe add one or two new services that really point towards helping people to be more independent. So I think, again, what we heard from a lot of folks is, you know, we talk a lot about keeping people healthy and safe. And that's important. And I don't ever want folks to hear me not recognize that that is important. But that's not the only thing that makes a good life, right? And so sometimes when we're providing folks with supports, we're providing them with supports to keep them healthy and safe, but we're maybe not always giving them the supports they need to learn how to be more independent in their life and how to develop the skills that they want to move into different places and stages in their life. And so really thinking about how do we help people to have different experiences and different opportunities that help them to be more independent. And so that's kind of that third theme coming out of Waiver Redesign. So what I would anticipate, I think Kathy Robinson, who is the director for the Bureau of Developmental Disability Services, she and her team are continuing to kind of work with HSRI at kind of putting together those themes and really building them out based on stakeholder feedback. And I think what you'll see is that we will share some information. I don't know if it'll be a paper or, but we'll share information probably sometime this summer. That's kind of like, where are we, like officially, where are we headed with Waiver Redesign? And what I would anticipate is that we will probably implement kind of a framework where we start addressing things that will help us do better in those 3 areas. And we'll have kind of projects that we work on, get some experience, figure out if it helped, make those tweaks, and then pick the next project to work on, right? And so it becomes more of an iterative process, a way that we will kind of try some ideas, learn from those, try some new ideas, learn from those, and kind of continuously make steps towards kind of getting better in those areas of team dynamics, working together as a team, in helping people navigate the system, and in making sure that folks can connect to the supports that help them build independence in their day-to-day life. So I wish I could say it's going to look exactly like this. I don't know that we know that yet, but that's kind of the flavor of where we're headed. And so a couple other things, looking at kind of our other bureaus, pardon me. We have the Bureau of Developmental Disability Services, and I think you are probably most familiar with them. They help manage our waiver programs, our group home programs, things of that nature. They work very closely with the Bureau of Quality Improvement Services, and that's Jessica Harlan York. So Jessica and her team are really responsible for helping to manage our incident reporting system, our complaint system, and they also help us with recruiting providers and kind of bringing new providers into the system, things of that nature. And so a lot of their work is so closely tied with BDDS that they've really been working hand in hand with them on Waiver Redesign, and then also on the Living Well grant that I talked about earlier. So that's 2 of our 4 bureaus. A third bureau is the Bureau of Rehabilitation Services, which you're probably most familiar with because of the vocational rehabilitation services. So VR is a federal program that helps us support people in gaining community-based, competitive, integrated employment. And so in addition to kind of just doing that important work, Teresa Colazar, who is the director for that program, she and her team are really focusing in on 2 areas to help us build and kind of improve as a VR system. One of those is how we support people with mental health conditions in finding and maintaining employment. And so we're doing a lot of work. We've been fortunate to get a couple of technical assistance grants through the federal government to help us really think about how we do a better job in that area and how we support our provider network in doing that important work. The other that may be of interest to this group is that we're also really digging in and looking at how do we do a better job of supporting people who are interested in moving out of sheltered work and into community-based employment. And how does VR, what is the role VR plays in that, and how can we support folks who are interested in doing that? So that's going to be, we'll probably be hearing more and more about Teresa's work in that area as well. And then last but certainly not least is the Bureau of Child Development Services, which most of you probably know as First Steps. And so that's our early intervention program for kids 0 to 3. Christina Commons is the director there. And so they're really focused. I actually had the opportunity to spend yesterday afternoon with Christina and her team as they worked on some of their kind of long-term planning, but really where they're headed, which I think is super exciting. And I think from a self-advocate perspective, you guys will enjoy this as well, but they're really focusing in on how do they help families who are, you know, brand new to this world, right? With a kiddo who maybe was recently diagnosed with a disability, helping those families to really build their advocacy skills, and helping those families to have really high expectations for their kiddos, so that they can help build them into fantastic self-advocates as they get older. And so we're really excited. We're going to be integrating some life course framework activities into their work, and really helping families get started on the right path, the right trajectory, if you will, so that we can, again, have high expectations for those kids, and for those families and for those kiddos to have high expectations of us as a system, particularly for those kiddos who may eventually participate in our VR program and or in one of our BDDS programs. So really excited about that. So I think I see another question perhaps.
We're actually probably going to call this because we're running up on time here. I do want to go back really fast. I think you guys have heard the term life course thrown out a couple of times. So if you're not familiar with life course, it's a program based out of University of Missouri, Kansas City. And we use a lot of it for planning and self-determination, advocating. I'm going to put the link to the life course learning website. They've got a bunch of tools if that's something you're interested in, particularly as part of your team meetings, and helping kind of mapping out your version of a good life, and what you do want, what you don't want, your supports. They've got a lot of different tools around that. So definitely recommend checking that out. Sean, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, just thanks for doing this, Kim. Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you. And I again, if folks have, you're welcome to share them with Sean and Shannon, and then they will get them to me. But if you have ideas, I'd love to hear from folks what you'd like to see DDRS focusing on. So what should we be doing that maybe we're already doing and you want us to keep going, kind of like Hannah talked about earlier, or things maybe we're doing you want us to stop doing. I'm good to hear that too. Or maybe something we're not doing that you would love for us to start. So let us know that. I'd also love to hear how you think we could do a better job of involving self-advocates in our work. So if you've got if you want to volunteer, if you have some suggestions, again, share that with Sean and Shannon, and then they'll get that information to me, and I'll share it with our team, and we'll see what we can do. But I really appreciate the opportunity, and if you would like for us to join again in the future, we're always happy to do that. So just let us know.
Thank you so much. We really appreciated your time and everything you had to share. It was really great for our kickoff forum.
Yes.
Awesome. And as Kim said, if there's anything you'd like to share, additional questions, I've put my email in the chat box. So feel free to reach out that way. I'm sure Kim's information is probably on the DARS website somewhere. There's probably a contact us page on DARS website.
And I just dropped my my email into the chat, so feel free to nab it there.
Also, if you guys have any input on future issues forums, things you're wanting to learn more about, we'd love to hear more ideas. We would love for this to be a long-term thing that we do every month that SAI does, and we'd love to hear more about what you'd love to hear more about. So let us know if there's anything in your life that you'd like to learn more about. All right, so thank you all for joining us in our first ever Issues Forum for April.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming and listening. Hope to see you all at the next one.
Yes. Thanks everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.